Today I'm going to paint an underwater scene where sunlight comes through the surface of the water towards the bottom. Hi friends, I'm Olga Koelsch, watercolor artist, teacher and a book author. Welcome to my studio. Let's glaze the surface of the paper just with clean water. Let's prepare our lightest blue. If you have paints like cerulean or cobalt, cerulean would be great. I will start with it and I dilute it a lot. I imagine that the source of the light, the sunshine, is somewhere in the middle. Let's make it easy. Let it be in the middle. So I step a little bit outside of that and create my first light wash, leaving a little bit of white area, very light on the top, and while I'm moving down I can add a bit more of intensity, make my mix a bit darker and bring it down. Try to avoid rough edges, no need to paint a lot in this bottom area. First of all, I would like to add a bit more of just water to increase this light part. Now let's work on the light. I wash my brush, I dry it with a paper towel. With synthetic brushes it works better, and then I make very quick moves, pressing a lot on the brush, and every time I dry my brush should remain dry after each move. And then we need to dry. Once this underneath layer is dry, let's mix another one. You can add phthalo blue to make it more intense, turquoise if you have, to get this deeper color. A bit of green even is great. Make it much darker than we have. You can prepare an extra mix with indigo. Because of the light, because of the source of the light, everything will be under sunlight and a little bit rounded shape. I will start with the light part. Somewhere from the middle, we will be moving in both directions. And I start to create brush strokes, sometimes leaving a bit of space in between, but keeping in mind that structure, this rounded structure, like this. Sometimes I attach brush strokes one to another, sometimes I don't. I keep the most light brush strokes in the center and the most light mix in the center. And the more I move towards the edges, the darker paint I can add, and the smaller space between brush strokes I leave. So it's a bit of jungling of everything. Sometimes I just wash a little bit my brush. It still has something in it, and that's enough for me to make this soft light middle, and then I very organically attach the darker brush strokes to it. Let it all mix, let it all be different, and the more we are going towards the bottom, the bigger brush strokes you can make and the less wide area you can leave in between. I imagine here will be some coral reef, something like this. Again, a bit lighter in the middle, darker towards the edges. You can even switch to a smaller brush, because now we will be working on the top, and very quickly we arrange smaller brush strokes, the same as we did on the bottom, but much smaller, and leaving more space in between. Very light in the middle, a bit darker at the edges. It might feel a bit quick to paint, but that's all right. You just keep your paper towel around. It will always help you to reduce the intensity of paints. Try to make interesting brush strokes, asymmetrical. Sometimes they can be a bit longer, sometimes they can be a bit shorter. I would like to add a bit more in the middle. You see, no problem to come back where we've been. Try to avoid this feeling of I assemble bricks, so should not be too ornamental. Can be a bit different, a bit bigger space in some areas, a slightly bigger brush stroke. What would be nice is to keep that balance between dark edges and very light middle. And now, if you have some synthetic flat brush, that would be very convenient. If you don't, just use synthetic brush as we did before. And I wash it. I slightly dry it with a paper towel. And again, I move my brush from top to bottom, lifting up. Can always try to do it with a Mottler brush. It works even better. It allows me to create bigger, softer strokes. It's important that you cover the full area, starting a little bit from the top, and then bravely move your brush towards the bottom. Another important moment, after you lift up your brush, you wash it. Otherwise, you will bring this blue paint, which you lifted, back again to the light area. You don't need that. Now let's add some coral scene. It'd be nice for a contrast to add something something yellowish, bright. That can be some purples, yellow ochre, but should be pretty deep paints because we're already under the water. It's not so much sunlight around. And let's add some corals. Just very loose way, because this scene, it's not about corals, it's more about sunshine, about sunlight underwater. So I'm just trying to recreate some scene on the bottom. Very light accents with Indian yellow, but everything should be very intense. No transparency now. The bottom should feel very heavy. A bit of green. Green is very organically here. Nice to mix it with the same blue we have. Basically, it's again just brush strokes, a little bit thinner, a little bit thicker, different directions. Not to use too many different paints. Just some purple, yellow ochre, and green. They all somehow mixing with each other. Pretty bold. I purposefully try to let everything mix, to basically just creating nice mixed wash. Very fun just to watch how watercolor mix. What else can we do? We can add some salt just at the bottom area. Try to carefully add salt just into the coral pot. And now, while it all dries, I would like to add a couple of final brush strokes at the very top. Very light cerulean. Very light cerulean. I will start with that. Arranging some brush strokes, can be smaller, can be longer. I want to add a bit more of interesting details. Indigo and turquoise, they're nicely mixed, but just indigo also will do the trick. A bit darker shade, darker parts on the edges. So now the corals are dry. I can remove the salt and remove paper type. One of the most rewarding parts. Now our under the sea scene is ready. I hope it was fun for you and you enjoyed the process. Thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you learned something new. Please let me know in comments what would you like to paint next, and see you soon. Bye bye.